talk to me a little bit, Sarah, about, how this all comes together and creates magic.
Wow, that's a big bucket to get into, but I think, in general, a CRM enables your teams, whether it's sales, marketing, or customer service, to get the right type of message in front of the right person at the right time. And that's usually a phrase that's associated with marketing, but the way that we view a CRM is, you know, your touch points should be consistent across the brand. It's saving your team time and task bandwidth if it's automated and templatized, still personalized, but it's all operating from a single system with a library of assets. And then what a CRM also does is it gives you the data you need to make decisions that are based on results instead of feelings or good ideas or things like that. And so oftentimes we say, start small, start simple, and then build onto that. And if you fall into the bucket where you've got a CRM and it's fully moving and grooving and operating well, that's actually an opportunity to continue to test and optimize. And then we all know the only thing that stays the same is change. So your customer, your prospect, your leads are all like their expectations for communication and what's best practice changes over time. And so having a CRM enables you to keep up with changes in expectations for communication in a very systemized and trackable way.
In terms of really wanting to provide some actionable takeaways, let's dig into, what I see as one of the most, I guess, the biggest pain points most companies face with their CRM, and it's their contacts, right? They might have a big database, but they have no idea kind of who's in this database and how best to utilize things like automation, workflows, sequences, even sales outreach, personalized sales outreach, because they've just been using their CRM as like a dumping ground for all things, all contacts. I mean, the good news is you've got contacts, but I think if you're not figuring out a way to segment those contacts on an ongoing basis, it's, like we always say that, you could have millions of dollars in your database, but you just don't know how to mine for it. So let's start with that and how companies can start to filter and understand who's in their database and how to use the CRM to unlock that and then ongoingly, keep that moving forward so that you do realize those amazing stats we looked at before on increased conversions and increased revenue. So what would you say are some of the things a company should do? They've got a CRM, they've got, X amount of contacts, now what?
I mean, that's a really good question. I think oftentimes what I've usually seen is someone has inherited a CRM that's been in place for a while, and they're not 100% on what's in there at all. So let's say your contact list is a bit of a black box. I would take a look at what has been the contacts and the touch points that you've inherited to date. So what percentage of your contact list has been sent a communication, and how long has it been? Contacts do go cold. Like emails will start bouncing after a while. So there's some very objective things that you can look at initially. I'd also take a look at the lists that are currently in the tags and the data points that are currently in there to enable you to determine what's possible with the current data infrastructure that's in there for segmentation. There's some key ways that you would want to segment your contact list, and getting an understanding of how and if it's segmented right now, and then what data points are in there enables you to really come up with a game plan for how to clean out the contacts that are either just like bad, as in, what makes a bad contact is the email isn't valid, or that they've opted out and somehow they don't want your emails and somehow you're
Right.
still sending them. Um,
Yeah. I was going to say, I think about it as usually what you might find, like starting big and then narrowing down.
yes.
Usually, what you might find in your database is a big bucket of what I'm just going to refer to as leads. And then we're going to talk a little bit more about how to segment that further. You might have customers in there, and you might have employees in there. So, we're going to focus in this conversation on just what we're going to refer to as leads. And I think to your point, you may have converted your MailChimp list and just, imported it into your CRM so that you just have like this big, massive list, but you don't have maybe some key criteria like how did they get on the list? What date did they initially join? Because now you've imported them and they're all kind of one date. So once you have leads, again, in our organization, we use kind of three bigger categories within leads. So general leads, marketing qualified leads, and sales qualified leads. So our definitions of those, and every company should define this for themselves, but these might help guide you, is a sales qualified lead is someone who has taken an action that has know that they are qualified to do business with you and they've expressed an interest. So that might look like they've booked a meeting with you, they've requested a proposal, maybe you've had a meeting with them, and they went cold. There could be other factors, but those are kind of the most common. And then a marketing qualified lead is someone who essentially it appears that they are a qualified buyer for your services or products, but they have not indicated or shown behavior that says I'm ready for the next step, I'm ready for the conversation. That could look like they attended a webinar, they're on your newsletter list, they've downloaded a piece of content that's very specific to your product or services that has they're interested. And then general leads are kind of ones where they may be one of the other two, but you just don't have the data to support that. Or they could be, what I'll refer to as fans of your brand, but they're never going to be a customer. They like your content, they like what you do, they use it for learning, but they're just never going to be a customer. What might add on or fine tune from what I said there?
I think it's a good point to like look at the lowest hanging fruit in terms of moving the needle. So if you're looking at the data points within your contact list, it's like are the contacts that have engaged with us most recently with the highest intent score? So if it's a high intent page, meaning they, if it's gathering this, if they went to your book a call or book a demo page and then maybe bounced or navigated away, those are the ones that I would prioritize getting them into, your sales queue for personal outreach or building a quick automation to touch on them quickly. So let's capture the leads that you currently have in your CRM to get them to move. And then I think big picture for sure, because even when you were mentioning promoters, they may never become customers. For us, it's oftentimes job seekers. They're still people that we want to retain in our system and keep them updated because they could be promoting us and leading to talent coming to our site or additional like potential customer leads coming to our site. So so yeah, I would add, if you're really lost and not sure where to start, look at your high intent pages, what contacts have been engaged in those, and then start there.
Yeah, and then I think it goes back to, we refer, to the flywheel. That's always what we kind of look at from a strategic standpoint. So I think looking at the flywheel and determining, first of all, in order to know who might be a good prospect, a good lead, a marketing qualified lead, qualified lead, you need to understand who your target audience is. It sounds very basic, but oftentimes if you don't have that really clearly defined, your, buyer persona is another way you might look at that. It's hard to know who's a good fit and who's not. So really identifying your target audience as, to the detail as possible. And that could include industry, size of company, person in the company, certain issues they may be dealing with. So the more you can truly define who your target audience is, that helps you understand, who you have in your database, if you are able to see that criteria. If not, you can develop content that starts to help you determine that. So for instance, you can develop certain types of ebooks, downloads, webinars, et cetera, that would only attract that type of person. So that's another way to use your database to start to filter and get better information about them. So that's, I think understanding your audience, and that customer journey. And I'm going to let you speak a little bit more about that. You have to understand what happens, like from first engagement to what does it take to get them to, a revenue, a revenue stream. So maybe speak a little bit more about the customer journey and how important it is to have that strategic hat on for your CRM as well as the tactical.
Yeah, I mean, the customer journey is so important. And when we say customer, we mean anyone that's interacting with your company. And so, we even view ourselves as our own customers. And what is our digital journey and our experience like through our own site and the communication that we get and that we're sending to the rest of our team. And so thinking about that, it's usually, each product or service that a company will have multiple target audiences within that. We like to refer to them as like specific personas, so that when we're crafting a message, regardless of where they are in the life cycle, we're picturing they're fictitious, but a real person that we're speaking to. And so you want to think about from the time that they even first hear about your company through to, potentially, going on the other end of your product or service, being the ones to go out and refer you to other people, other organizations, giving you reviews online, things like that. And so every single touch point along the way can and should be built into your CRM. That's ideal. But, regardless of whether or not every touch point is in your CRM or if it's part of your business operations outside of your CRM, you want to think about the customer experience and the customer journey as a unified approach. And so you start really big. So thinking about the life cycle, they start off as a stranger. They don't know about your brand. They then know about your brand, you know about them. They become a prospect. Prospects are nurtured throughout the marketing and sales life cycle. If they convert into a customer or a client, you want to keep them engaged and keep them delighted. And then eventually, ideally, they're a promoter that then attract more strangers to your business. So thinking about it that way, you want to think about the messages and the timing of each of those messages. What is a pain point or a bottleneck that has prevented them from booking a demo? Let's get some content in there to address that and use automations and triggers so that your team isn't having to manually do this. The whole point of this system is that you're able to create consistency and then automate it so your team isn't having to manually do this.